The aliens laughed at the old human. They thought he was weak, just a grandfather with a wooden stick. But when he stepped into the scanner, the machine didn't beep. It screamed. The screen showed a glitch? No, it showed a kill count 10,000. The commander turned pale. That wasn't a walking stick. It was a weapon of mass destruction. And the old man, he just smiled and said, "Don't touch it, or you die."
The galactic hub, known as Station Omega, was considered the safest place in the entire galaxy. It was a shining city floating in deep space where thousands of alien species met for trade and peace. To enter Station Omega, everyone had to pass through the gateway, which was not just a door, but the most advanced scanner in the universe. It could see everything, from weapons hidden inside stomach linings to bombs the size of a grain of sand, and it could even read the history of an object just by scanning its atoms. Nothing dangerous ever got past the gateway, or so they thought. The line at the checkpoint was long, filled with strange creatures that had 4 arms or blue skin, but among them stood a single human. He looked completely out of place because he was old, very old. His hair was white and thin, his skin was wrinkled like dry paper, and he wore a simple dirty brown cloak. He walked slowly, leaning heavily on a wooden walking stick, looking like he might fall over at any moment. High Commander Xylar, a tall and arrogant Vexian alien, watched from the glass booth above and laughed at the human's weakness, wondering why such a frail creature was even allowed to travel. When the old man, whose name was Elias, finally reached the front of the line, the large 4-eyed security guard stopped him and barked at him to place all items on the conveyor belt. Elias looked up with tired eyes and explained that he needed the stick to walk because his legs were weak, but the guard didn't care and ordered him to comply or leave. With a heavy sigh, Elias placed the wooden stick on the belt and wobbled through the body scanner, which confirmed he was just a harmless 92-year-old man with deteriorating health. However, when the walking stick entered the object scanner, everything changed. Usually a scan took 1 second, but this time the machine didn't beep. Instead, it began to hum and vibrate, shaking the floor beneath them. Up in the control booth, Commander Xylar and his assistant were confused as the scanner reported that while the outside of the object was wood, the inside contained an unknown material. The scanner began reading the biohistory of the stick to see if it had been used as a weapon. And suddenly, the numbers on the screen began to rise rapidly, causing the lights in the station to turn from a calm blue to a warning orange. The numbers on the screen kept climbing. 10, 50, 100, and at first Commander Xylar laughed, thinking the old man used the stick to kill insects on a farm. But the laughter died in his throat as the counter passed 1,000, then 5,000, and finally stopped at a terrifying number. 10,000 confirmed kills. The entire control room went deadly silent because even heavy military rifles didn't have that many confirmed kills. This wasn't just a weapon, it was a tool of mass destruction. The alarms began to scream, flashing red warnings of a Class 5 threat, and the guard at the checkpoint pointed his rifle at Elias, shouting for him to raise his hands. Elias didn't look scared, he just looked sad as he told the guard that it was just a stick. Panic took over the station, and Commander Xylar screamed over the speakers for the guards not to touch the object because its energy readings were critical. But the guard was greedy. He saw the high threat warning and thought that if he captured this powerful weapon, he would be a hero. Ignoring the orders and Elias's quiet warning, the guard reached out and grabbed the handle of the walking stick. The moment the guard's skin touched the wood, a massive shockwave blasted through the room, shattering the glass windows and throwing the guard 40 feet backward into a metal wall. The stick didn't move. It just floated in the air, humming with an angry purple light that made everyone fall to their knees in pain from the sheer pressure. Elias sighed, walked calmly through the broken glass, and snatched the stick from the air, causing the terrifying energy to instantly vanish. He tapped it on the ground and looked up at the control booth, telling Commander Xylar that the stick didn't like strangers. When Xylar, trembling with fear, asked who he really was, Elias revealed that he was just a traveler now, but a long time ago, people called him the Reaper of the Void. Xylar's heart stopped because the Reaper was a legend, a ghost story about a human who had single-handedly ended the Great War 50 years ago. Xylar tried to be brave and ordered his elite soldiers to arrest the old man. And 30 heavily armored guards surrounded Elias, pointing their plasma rifles at his head. Elias stood calmly in the circle of soldiers and told them he had promised his granddaughter he wouldn't fight anymore, asking the commander not to make him break that promise or become kill number 10,001. Just as the tension peaked, a massive explosion rocked the station and the emergency lights turned on as reports came in that the Black Sun pirates had breached the hull and were attacking. The elite soldiers panicked as the ruthless pirates began cutting through the blast doors, and Commander Xylar realized his station was about to fall. He looked at the chaos, then he looked at the old man who stood perfectly still with his walking stick. Realizing he had no other choice, he ordered his soldiers to stand down and let the human fight. Elias looked up, tipped his imaginary hat to the commander, and whispered, "Smart choice." He lifted his walking stick, twisted the handle, and with a loud click, the wood split open, revealing the weapon hidden inside.
The thick metal blast doors of Station Omega didn't just open, they were torn apart. Through the smoke and sparks, the Black Sun pirates stormed into the hallway like a pack of hungry wolves. These weren't ordinary criminals. They were 7 feet tall, covered in jagged metal armor and holding rusty serrated blades that buzzed with electricity. They roared and triumphed, expecting to see the elite guards trembling in fear. Instead, the first thing they saw was a small, fragile old human standing alone in the center of the room, holding what looked like a broken wooden stick. The pirate leader, a brute with a scar across his face, paused and started to laugh. To him, it looked like the station's security had sent a grandfather to stop an army. He pointed his heavy blaster at Elias and grinned, thinking this would be the easiest kill of his life. The elite guards behind Elias held their breath, waiting for the old man to be vaporized. But Elias didn't flinch. He just looked at the pirate with sad, tired eyes and whispered, "I gave you a chance to turn back." Elias twisted the handle of his walking stick, and the wooden shell fell away completely. Underneath, there was no metal, no laser, and no plasma. Instead, there was a long, thin rod made of a material so black that it seemed to drink the light from the room. It was void metal, a relic from the Great War that no scientist had seen in 50 years. With a flick of his wrist, a blade of pure darkness extended from the top, curving like a grim reaper's scythe. It didn't glow, it cast a shadow. The air around the blade turned cold, and a low, terrifying sound echoed in the minds of everyone present, like the scream of a dying star. The pirate leader's laughter died instantly. He didn't know what that weapon was, but his instincts screamed at him to run. Before he could pull the trigger of his blaster, Elias moved. He didn't run like an old man. He moved like a blur, a shadow shifting across the floor. The fight lasted only 10 seconds, but to Commander Xylar watching from the booth, it felt like hours. Elias spun through the group of pirates with a grace that was terrifying to watch. He didn't hack or slash like a butcher, he danced. The void blade passed through the pirate's heavy armor as if it were made of smoke. There was no resistance, no sparks, and no sound of metal hitting metal. When the blade touched the pirate leader's blaster, the weapon simply dissolved into dust, the atoms cut apart by the ancient technology. Elias ducked under a swinging sword and tapped the attacker on the chest with the blunt end of his scythe, sending the massive alien flying across the room. Within moments, 12 terrifying pirates lay on the ground, their weapons destroyed and their armor sliced to pieces. Elias stood in the middle of them, breathing slightly heavier than before, but completely unharmed. He tapped the scythe on the floor and the dark blade retracted back into the rod. Up in the security booth, Commander Xylar stared at the screen with his mouth open. The kill count on the scanner hadn't moved because Elias hadn't killed them, he had only disabled them. That showed even more skill than killing. Xylar realized that the stories were true. This wasn't just an old traveler. This was General Elias Thorne, the man who ended the intergalactic war. Xylar turned on his microphone, his voice shaking with respect. "General," he said, "I apologize for my earlier disrespect. We are honored to have you." Elias looked up at the booth and wiped sweat from his forehead. "Save the speeches, Commander," Elias replied, his voice raspy. "This was just the scouting party. The Black Sun Pirates never attack with just one squad. They're looking for something specific. Tell me, what is in the cargo hold of this station?" Before Xylar could answer, the station shook violently again, knocking the elite guards to their knees. The emergency lights turned from red to a flashing purple, a sign of a catastrophic failure. A deep mechanical voice boomed over the station's speakers. It wasn't the station's computer, it was the pirate warlord Krogoth. "Citizens of Station Omega, I do not want your credits. I do not want your ships. You have a prisoner in Block 9, a bioweapons scientist. Give him to me, or I will vent the oxygen from the entire station and watch you all suffocate in the cold dark." Xylar's face went pale. He looked at Elias. Block 9 is on the other side of the station," he whispered. "If they get that scientist, they can build a virus that wipes out solar systems." Elias groaned and rubbed his aching back. "I just wanted a vacation. I just wanted to see my granddaughter." Elias looked at the terrified soldiers around him. They were young, well-equipped, but they lacked experience. They were looking at him like he was a god, waiting for him to save them. "Listen to me," Elias barked, his voice suddenly sounding like the general he used to be. "The warlord is on the bridge. He controls the life support. If we don't stop him in 10 minutes, everyone dies." He pointed at the young, four-eyed guard who had tried to take his stick earlier. "You, son, you know the maintenance tunnels?" The guard nodded, trembling. "Good," Elias said. "Lead the way. We are going to the bridge." He reactivated his scythe, the black blade humming with power. "Commander Xylar," Elias shouted at the booth, "open the internal gates. I'm going to pay this warlord a visit. And Xylar, reset that kill counter. I have a feeling I'm going to break my record today." The maintenance tunnels of Station Omega were dark, cramped, and smelled of burning wires. The red emergency lights flickered, casting long, scary shadows on the walls. Elias ran through the narrow pipes, followed closely by the young four-eyed guard and a small squad of terrified soldiers. The air was getting thin. Warlord Krogoth wasn't lying. He had started venting the oxygen into space. Every breath felt heavy, like inhaling sand. The young guard stumbled, gasping for air, but Elias grabbed him by the shoulder and pulled him up. "Breathe slowly," Elias commanded, his voice calm despite the chaos. "Panic burns oxygen. Fear kills you faster than the lack of air." Even though Elias was 92 years old, he wasn't slowing down. His wooden stick, now revealed as the terrifying Void Scythe, glowed faintly in the dark, lighting the way. He wasn't running away from the danger. He was leading them straight into the heart of it. Suddenly, the tunnel opened up into a large cargo bay, and the squad froze. They weren't alone. 50 Black Sun pirates stood there, waiting. These weren't just foot soldiers, they were heavy gunners, carrying plasma cannons that could melt a tank. They saw the old man and roared, opening fire instantly.
"Cover!" Elias shouted, but there was nowhere to hide. The soldiers screamed as laser blasts exploded around them. Elias didn't hide. He stepped forward and did something impossible. He slammed the bottom of his scythe onto the metal floor. Boom! A wave of black energy exploded from the stick. It wasn't a laser, it was a gravity well. For a few seconds, gravity in the room reversed. The pirates, their heavy guns, and the crates floated helplessly into the air. They flailed their arms, confused and terrified. Elias spun the scythe, and the black blade slashed through the air, sending shockwaves that knocked the floating pirates into the walls. The room fell silent again. The pirates were defeated, groaning on the floor or unconscious. The young guard looked at Elias with wide eyes, treating him like a god of war. But then he saw the truth. Elias leaned against a crate, his chest heaving violently. The old man's hands were shaking uncontrollably. A drop of blood trickled from his nose. Using the void scythe wasn't free. It drained the user's life force. At 92, Elias's body couldn't handle the power like it used to. He coughed, a dry, painful sound, and wiped the blood away with his sleeve. "General?" the guard whispered. "Are you okay?" Elias straightened up, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I'm fine, kid. Just need a nap. But first, we have a warlord to evict." He knew he didn't have much fight left in him. Maybe one more battle, maybe none. But he couldn't let these soldiers die. They reached the massive golden doors of the command bridge. The metal was hot to the touch because of the chaos inside. Commander Xylar's voice crackled over the radio, sounding weak. "General, he is here. He has the crew. The oxygen is at 10%. Please, hurry." Elias looked at his reflection in the golden door. He looked old. He looked tired. He thought about his granddaughter waiting for him on the planet below. He tightened his grip on the black weapon. "Open it," Elias ordered. The young guard hacked the control panel, and the massive doors slowly hissed open. Smoke poured out, swirling around Elias's feet as he walked into the bridge. The sight was a nightmare. The station's crew was tied up in the corner. In the center, sitting on the commander's chair like a king, sat Warlord Kragoth. Kragoth was a monster. He was 8 feet tall, wearing a powered exoskeleton suit made of bones and steel. One of his arms was a giant mechanical claw, and the other held a hammer that sparked with electricity. When he saw Elias, he didn't attack. He stood up slowly, the hydraulics in his suit hissing. He looked at the small, frail human, and then he looked at the black scythe. A low, grinding laugh came from his helmet. "So," Kragoth rumbled, his voice shaking the floor, "the rumors are true. The ghost of the void is real. You look weak, old man. You looked like you were about to die of natural causes. Do you really think you can stop me?" Elias stood his ground. He didn't look up at the giant. He stared straight ahead. "I have killed gods, demons, and armies, Kragoth. You are just a bully in a metal suit." Kragoth roared in anger, activating his hammer. The electricity turned blue and crackled wildly. "Then come and die, Reaper," the warlord shouted. Elias closed his eyes for a brief second, taking one last deep breath of the thin air. He twisted the handle of his scythe again. The black blade grew longer, pulsating with dark energy. Elias opened his eyes, and they were glowing with a faint purple light. "Let's finish this," Elias whispered. He charged forward, not as an old man, but as the warrior he once was. The final battle had begun.
The battle on the bridge began with a sound like thunder. Warlord Kragoff swung his massive electric hammer, aiming to crush the old man into dust. The weapon moved so fast that the air screamed, but Elias was not there. At the very last second, Elias slid underneath the giant's swing. The hammer smashed into the metal floor, creating a crater and sending sparks flying everywhere. Elias didn't retreat. He used the momentum to spin his black scythe, slashing at the warlord's robotic legs. Sparks flew as the void blade cut into the armor, but Kragoff's suit was too thick. The warlord roared and kicked backward, catching Elias in the chest. The old man flew across the room and crashed into the main control console. Glass shattered and the screen flickered. Elias groaned, coughing up blood. His old bones were screaming in pain. The soldiers watching from the doorway gasped. It looked like the legend had finally met his match. Kragoff laughed, a cruel, mechanical sound. He walked slowly toward the injured old man, his heavy metal footsteps shaking the deck. "Is this the Reaper?" Kragoff mocked. "Is this the hero of the Great War? You are just a fragile bag of bones." He raised his giant hammer high above his head for the final blow. Elias lay on the floor, breathing hard. His vision was blurry. He looked at his shaking hands. He knew he couldn't overpower the monster. He couldn't be stronger. But he remembered a lesson he learned 50 years ago. You don't need to break the wall, you just need to find the crack. Elias grabbed his walking stick tightly. The black blade stopped humming and went completely silent. It turned a darker shade of black, absorbing all the light in the room. Elias whispered to his weapon, "Just one more time, old friend. Just one last cut." Just as Kragoff brought the hammer down, Elias moved. He didn't just dodge, he lunged forward. He moved faster than his body should have allowed, pushed by pure willpower. He didn't aim for the warlord's head or chest, he aimed for the weapon. The void scythe collided with the electric hammer. Usually, metal hits metal with a loud clang, but this time there was no sound. The void blade sliced through the thick steel of the hammer like a hot knife through butter. It didn't stop there. The blade continued its arc, slicing through the hydraulic pipes of Kragoff's mech suit. The warlord froze. His giant hammer fell into two pieces, clattering uselessly on the floor. Then his suit gave a loud whine as all power died. The giant mechanical claw fell limp. Kragoff was trapped inside his own armor, unable to move a single inch. Silence filled the bridge. The warlord tried to move, but his suit was dead weight. Elias stood in front of him, barely able to stand, using the scythe to hold himself up. He tapped the warlord's helmet with the blunt end of the stick. "Technology is good," Elias panted, his voice rough, "but skill is forever." Suddenly, a loud ping echoed from the security console near the wall. Commander Xylar, who had been watching the scanners, gasped. The kill counter on the screen flickered. It changed from 10,000 to 10,001. Technically, he hadn't killed the warlord, but he had killed the warlord's legacy. The pirates, seeing their leader defeated by an old man with a stick, dropped their weapons and surrendered. The bridge erupted in cheers. The young soldiers ran to help Elias, looking at him with tears in their eyes. They weren't just looking at a soldier, they were looking at a savior. An hour later, the station was secure. The elite guards were taking the pirates to the prison cells. Commander Xylar found Elias sitting on a bench near the gateway, wrapping his terrifying weapon back into its wooden shell. It looked like a normal walking stick again. Xylar stood straight and offered a sharp military salute. "General Thorne," Xylar said respectfully, "Station Omega is in your debt. Anything you need, credits, a ship, a medal, it is yours." Elias smiled kindly and shook his head. "I don't need medals, Commander. I just need you to approve my entry visa. I'm late." Xylar blinked, confused, but immediately stamped the passport. "Of course, sir. Access granted." Elias took his papers, grabbed his stick, and limped through the gate, disappearing into the crowd of travelers. Outside the arrivals gate, a little human girl no older than 7 was waiting. She had bright eyes and pigtails. When she saw the old man, she screamed with joy, "Grandpa!" She ran and hugged his legs. Elias dropped his stick and hugged her back, lifting her up with the last bit of strength he had. The pain in his back vanished, the memories of the war faded. In this moment, he wasn't the Reaper, he wasn't the god of war. He was just Grandpa. "Did you have a good trip, Grandpa? Did you meet anyone nice?" the little girl asked. Elias looked back at the station where thousands of aliens were whispering his name in fear and respect. He looked at his granddaughter and winked. "Oh yes, I met some very interesting people. But don't worry, I was on my best behavior." He picked up his wooden walking stick, and together they walked away into the bright lights of the city.
And that is the legend of General Elias Thorne. Even at 92, humanity is not to be messed with. If you enjoyed this story, please smash that like button. It helps the archive grow across the galaxy. Here is a question for you. If you had a legendary weapon like the Void Scythe, what would you disguise it as? An umbrella? A pen? Or maybe a guitar? Tell me your creative ideas in the comments down below. If you want more epic stories about humans being awesome, make sure to subscribe to the Xenowars Archive and hit that notification bell. You don't want to miss the next war. Click the video on your screen right now to hear another incredible sci-fi story. I will see you in the next one.